Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us live. We are the Voice of Reason podcast. I am your host, Sean Patrick Phillips, joined along my two co-hosts, Mr. Andy Van Beber and Travis Kirkendall. How are you two gentlemen doing this evening?
Fan,
Outstanding.
you sound so much better. I'm glad that we have your sexy voice back up and running again.
Yes, I am feeling much better. I have finally overcome the man flu allergy seasonal sickness that had me down. It was just a bunch of White Claws and Zyrtec and Claritin that were able to get me to where I am today. So
COVID
I
vaccine.
can say that oranges, whether or not you eat them or insert them, they will get the job done with
Wait a minute. Wait.
your
Insert them. Insert them.
Please describe.
yeah, it's a quicker way to get the nutrients pulled right from there. If it doesn't have to go through your
Oh my
large and
God. Yep.
small
We got him.
intestine.
We got him back, Travis. We got him back. We're good. Okay.
Oh, well, I wanted to say thank you for everyone who's going to be joining us live here on Facebook tonight, and for everyone that will be listening to us. I just want to start off by saying it has been quite the week. Since Monday, things have kind of spiraled all over the place, and we definitely have a fantastic show for you guys planned. We're going to be talking a little about foreign policy, a couple of crazy incidents that have happened in this past week, whether or not it's been, not even bad, not even people affected, but just some interesting topics that we haven't seen in a long time are kind of riding the waves, whether on Twitter or Facebook or in the news, mainstream media. It's definitely been an interesting past couple of 7 days, and I'm super excited to be able to chat with you guys about it. And if anyone joins us live on Facebook, please do not forget you are more than welcome to shoot yourself a comment down below on our live stream, and we are more than happy to get you engaged with us while we're chatting away. So first and foremost, before we jump into things, anything new happened for you two gentlemen over the week that we should know about?
COVID shot number 1 is in the books, boys.
Yeah, which one are you rolling with?
Is it the Moderna one, I believe?
So is
it's
that one
okay,
of the
so-
2 shots or is it 3 now?
Yes, definitely the 2 shots. And I want to tell you, Saturday kicked my butt. My wife got the Johnson and Johnson one. She felt a little weird. My arm was throbbing so much I could not lift it up above my shoulder like this, and it was hurting so bad.
The Johnson and Johnson, that's the one and done, yeah.
Yeah. She was pretty much fine after that. So I mean, we did. She did pretty well with it. I'm feeling fine now. So I mean, like I said, just being responsible and doing the right thing and everything.
So quick question.
I know.
You just
Yeah.
have like the pain in the shoulder, or was there like any other symptoms? Because I heard some people said they had like symptoms after the second shot.
I had a major headache. I mean, I had a major headache going, and it was hardcore, and it lasted about half a day, and then I just felt like total garbage throughout the rest of the day. Sunday I was fine, no problem. So
Kind of what I've heard. It's like a 24-hour thing, and
yeah.
you're golden.
So yeah.
Yeah, I know an individual in my office that had the Pfizer shot,
Okay.
and literally was like in the ER, like had been hit by a bus. It seemed like it was pretty rough. There was a couple of them
Really?
that were out. I've heard with that one, there's been a couple of people who have really experienced some serious soreness and aches and stuff the day after, which comes as no surprise. I'm interested in seeing once I get mine, which one I'm even offered right away. So we'll see. It's where we've seen like individuals rushing to Walmart, getting in line for stuff. It was toilet paper, and now they're lining up for the vaccines. So it's you gotta love to see COVID brings people out like it's Black Friday, baby. I'm here for it. Now people got that stimmy money to spend while they're there too. So
Yeah, I was actually able to put some of that back into savings. So
Nice. I still haven't gotten mine
there
yet.
we go. Ooh,
you have not got yours?
No, but it was because my taxes weren't filed yet. But luckily, I finally got that taken care of. So
did you hit up that TurboTax or that H&R Block?
no, I'm done with TurboTax. That's actually why it took so long. But that's a whole different story. But got it
broke
solved.
up from old TurboTax. Well,
I did.
Hey,
there you go.
You know what's funny is I had heard a lot of people that had filed through TurboTax had experienced that hiccup where they weren't getting their checks or it was coming in through like some weird debit card. I'm not sure what the flub was. For whatever reason, my first Stimmy check came in fine. The second one, the $600 one,
same with me. Yep,
was the one that was messed up. But was weird was like I didn't file through TurboTax or H&R Block. I went through someone. So for whatever reason, they sent it to my old address that I hadn't lived in like a year and a half, 2 years. So it was like, hope they didn't cash it. I was able, when I filed my taxes, I was able to get that money back. So.
Good. That's good.
But who'd have thought that getting free money would be so difficult? You know, you'd really think it would just come right to you.
Well, you know, yeah. Well, it's, you know,
take it away. It's hard to get back.
Right. Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah. That's a Pandora's box that will open for another day, but you know.
Absolutely.
I'm looking on here. Okay, it looks like it's corrected. I was looking and it looked like the live stream had an issue, but it looks like it's fixed. Well, Travis, anything big happened for you this week?
No, not really. Pretty boring weekend. I went to school. I worked this day. It was another day.
Another day of living the old life in Chicago.
You got to let me know when you're getting ready to get up on that. What you said, John Hancock. You're going to go up on John Hancock Tower or whatever. Is that still a thing?
Yeah, eventually. I think our boss is just waiting for the weather to warm up, and we got the contract for it. So I don't know when it's going to happen, but
you got to take some live video of that so we can share that to the old podcast too.
Absolutely, I got the GoPro.
Awesome.
So sweet.
Well, cool. Yeah. Well, let's get on to our first topic of the day. One of the big things I kind of want to talk about, because I would love to get your guys' insight, and the reason why I want to start with this story in particular is because V, I kind of know where you go on things. Travis, I know where you go on things, and I know exactly where I go on things. So I just kind of wanted to see your guys' opinion. And V, I would actually love to get your take. Have your children, are they big fans of Old Town Road? Were they big fans of that song?
Well, Bryson does DJ, and I mean he actually does DJing with me, if you can imagine that. But he does DJing with me, and he knows the song, you know, and the whole thing with Lil Nas X. I mean, they don't know. I've talked to my wife about this, but you know, so
this is where I find things super interesting, and I just kind of wanted to get your guys' spin on this. So Lil Nas X, and Travis, I'm not even sure if you're in the loop on this, rapper came out with a song called Old Town Road about 2 years ago. It was like even though the lyrics and the meaning of the song, you know, definitely he talks about drinking lean, cheating on his girlfriend. You know, it's a song that's all over the place. But it was like the Minecraft, Roblox childhood anthem. Like it was the song. I've seen videos of entire elementary schools belting this song out word for word on the internet, right? So recently, old Lil Nas made waves by, at first it was a music video that he came out with, in which, if you're an artist, you're in the industry, music videos that are a bit out there are to no one's surprise. It happens all the time, not even a big deal, but it made the waves. People were talking about it because in the video, Lil Nas X gave Satan a lap dance, and people were like losing their minds, right?
Yeah,
but it's entertainment music video, no big deal. But then the icing on the cake, the tipping of the iceberg for a lot of people was shortly after that, he came out with a shoe. It was a collab shoe. They were Nike Air Maxes, and he collabed with a third-party company, and they made what's called the Satan shoes, right? And the Satan shoes have a Bible verse on it. I believe it's Luke 10.
Yeah, I got it. Luke 10:8, and that's 10:8, and it's in reference to Satan's fall from heaven.
Correct.
And 10:18. I'm sorry,
10:18. Yeah. And in the shoe, there's red dye, but an actual drop of human blood. Now here's the thing: whose human blood? I don't know. And that's honestly the impressive part. Is like, I want to know whose human blood they use to make these shoes.
I actually did some research on that, and it is actually members of the streetwear company, and the name of the streetwear company is MSCHF or Mischief. And so,
correct. And so, about a year ago, the same company actually released a Jesus shoe.
Jesus shoe,
and the same spot where the blood, the human blood, is in the Satan shoe was actual holy water. They put holy water in the shoe. So this isn't like, this is a company that's out, like that's normally rocking the pentagram stars. They rep JC as well. But I found it so amusing. But what's crazy now is the last thing I just saw an article, probably not, but 2 hours ago, is that now Nike is actually suing that company. They have finally filed. So there was a lot of talk in the waves of, at first, the big freak out was people were freaking out because they were Nikes. And a lot of people were like, did Nike collaborate with this guy on these Satan shoes? And people were like, it was funny because you saw people freaking out, but then other people were like, you care about the Satan shoe, but you don't care that, you still rock a Nike jacket that's made in a warehouse with a bunch of underage Chinese slave labor. Like, you're cool with that, but it's when they start printing out the pentagrams and so on those on, that's when we have the issue, right? But it turns out, no, it was just they had bought the shoes, collaborated with this other company, and made them. So now I'm interested to see how this goes with the cease and desist and the actual lawsuit in hand.
Well, they've already sold out all the shoes. The shoes sold out within an hour.
Within an hour.
Within an hour.
How many were there?
666.
666.
666.
How much are they selling for?
Over
1,008. The same as the verse. $1,018. The Luke 10:18 sold. And he went on. So Little Nas X, and he made a lot of statements. He said, I'm not here to raise your kids. That's your job. But he, Nike just totally, went off the reservation. And I was wondering, I was like you, Sean, I was wondering when the lawsuit was going to happen. And I'm just reading some stuff here about the suit right now. And it's just, they said that, they want to be in control of their brand. But I mean, they didn't really break a sweat last year when they released the Jesus shoe. And I mean, that was a Nike one too, as well. Mm-hmm. And so my whole thing is number one, I'm going to call it for what it is. Evil is evil is evil is evil. As a Christ follower, as a Christian, this angers me more than anything else, because you're flirting with some evil stuff here. And I mean, and I'm sure he's doing it to make light of himself. I mean, it's going to get him. It bought him another 15 minutes of fame. Old Town Road was dying out, and it bought him another 15 minutes of fame. I the thing that I have a problem with is when you're trying to. As a Christian, when you're trying to publicly, you're making your dollar off of saying, oh, well, hey, so drop the human blood, and they got and I looked at a pair of these shoes, and they've got a pentagram logo on the front and everything like that. Make your name somewhere else. I mean, because, and I have a problem with, in today's world, how we're saying, okay, well, it's okay to be evil. Believe what you want to believe. There's some places where I draw the line, and, Satanism, there's just been a lot of negative stuff tied to that. I don't particularly know any Satanists personally. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know any Satanists, and what's bad about this is, and, I could go off the deep end and say that this is, just a sign of the times that the book of Revelation talks about and says, hey, you know what? People are going to call the good bad and the bad good. And, and I mean, this guy is just, I mean, he's mixing with something. Did something just happen there? I think we lost Travis.
I'm still seeing him. No,
I've not seen him on mine though. So I think that what what we need to go back to doing here, and I know people are going to be seeing a weird photo. I don't have Travis on my feed though, Sean. Travis, are you still there?
He's still here.
I can't hear him on my end. So anyway, what this does for us, what I think this does for us is people are going to have to call evil for what it is. And I mean, evil is, straight evil.
Give me 1 second while we're trying to, has it resolved on your end?
No, sir, it hasn't. I do not have our live feed's going to look all messed up now because.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm seeing it on here as well. I'll go on I'll change the topic. V, I'll let you kind of try to work on that. See if you can figure out what's going on, because I can see him on my end. But yeah, as far as this situation goes, I definitely think it's interesting. I'm one of those kind of I would maybe say devil's advocates when it comes to being a Christian. There are certain things that don't necessarily bother me when it comes to seeing things, be it mainstream media, be it, stuff that Satan shoes or stuff like that. I can say this, and as a Christ follower myself, it's one of those situations I won't put myself in. I'm definitely not going to buy the shoes, and I definitely understand from like both sides of the coin of where, if this goes back to even like my time as went to a small school, right? And I'm an individual who I throw the term Christian Scientist around loosely because that can be taken any kind of crazy way. But I'm an individual that believes that evolution and like science, what we see is just the scientific way of explaining how God did what he did. That's just kind of my 2 cents on it. And so even when I expressed those beliefs in school, there were some individuals that berated me for it, belittled me, and talked all kinds of trash and stuff and insulted me just for, having those thoughts. And so I understand how there are individuals that might be, whether they be agnostic, atheist, Satanist, even just anyone that's not Christian, that might have felt alienated during their time in school or even out and about in the regular real world. So it's interesting to kind of see in recent times, we've really kind of been seeing more satanic images kind of like in the, up in front. And for some people, it's really not a big deal if, they don't believe. They're kind of just like, that is what it is. I understand why, the big bulk of Christian America is definitely like upset why they're, reacting like this. And I also I kind of consider it one of those same things, like this is a, youth kind of revolt kind of thing against, the man and against society. Even though society is always shifting like an ocean, it's in and out of what's trending and what's cool in society, what's not cool in society. But I look at this of like, think of heavy metal back in the day, like when, Slayer, AC/DC and groups like that were, coming out, and songs like Holy Diver by Dio were,
you're right. Right.
This is essentially kind of like the same thing, except now, maybe back then you had to be tuned into MTV, or maybe you had to turn on the hard rock channels, whereas now it's in the top 50 in the charts. And if you're,
but do you think though, but don't you think though that we're normalizing evil? I mean, even as Christian, when we normalize evil, that it's commonplace and that it's okay. I don't think that that's right though. I mean, I have a problem with saying, okay, I'm going to go with what I think is. There's just that, and I think we're crossing that line when we get to the point where we're saying, okay, here's a Satan shoe. Wear our Satan shoe. Wear this, or it's or it's just a means to make money. And I don't agree that that's the right way to go about saying, hey, let's make money. when you're exposing, and I don't care if Little Nas X said, "Oh, I'm not. It's not my job." Kids are watching this. Okay, so now, and parents are, and Sharon Dugan just commented. She said, "After the nightmare 2020 was, who would even want to take a chance of summoning evil?" And then Tammy McPike says, "I believe the Book of Revelation is happening now. All these things happening as it says." And when you normalize evil, when you normalize saying, "Okay, this is," and you mentioned MTV. So I grew up in the 80s. Okay, so I grew up with Metallica. I grew up with Def Leppard. I grew up with Whitesnake. I grew up with Slayer. I grew up with all that stuff. I mean, there was a point when, and I hope I'm not sounding like my dad too much, when AC/DC, AC/DC, everybody thought, "Oh, AC/DC means Against Christ, Devil's Children." Well, no, that's not an AC/DC. And whenever Brian Johnson, the lead singer of AC/DC, said, "No, it just we were thinking of a name," and they looked down, and or it was Bon Scott that was saying this, and he said, "We just looked down and saw AC/DC on the back of one of our amps, and we just said, hey, let's go with AC/DC. That sounds pretty cool."
We were so coked out of our minds that we couldn't actually get past A, B, C, or D, and we forgot about B, so we just said ACD. C again. Hell yeah, right. That's right. Right on.
Yeah. And so but just going with that realm of saying, okay, hey kids, let's play around with this. It's just one of those things that I think that at one point Christians are going to have to take a stand, and I am, this is part of me taking a stand against it, calling evil what it is. It's evil, and trying to say, it's okay to put on a pair of shoes and it's just a pair of shoes. Well, you allow that. It's a small window. I don't have a problem with people if they want to go worship Satan, go worship Satan. That's your right to do that. But realize, and I don't think people really realize that there is an evil. There are evil powers in the world. There are evil spirits in the world. There are. Some people just want to live in the here and now and don't think about, well, there's angels and demons, and it's real. Call it what you want and think about it what you want. But when you start playing with that dangerous of a thing, you're just asking for trouble.
Yeah, that's why I don't touch Ouija boards.
Oh yeah, exactly. Oh, Ouija. And that was the thing too. Ouija boards. I remember Milton Bradley this was back when I was in middle school.
Aren't they made by like Hasbro now?
Yeah. You're right. It's Hasbro, and Hasbro still markets it. I'm like, yeah. I've heard it just freaky. Personally, with people who I know who've messed with Ouija boards and have gotten bad mojo out of that.
That'll have to be a guest on the show.
Oh yeah, we definitely. I would love to
leave the lights on in my room, but yeah.
Well, oh man, yeah. Travis, what do you think about all this?
I'll be open about it. I'm not a very religious person. I haven't been for a while. In my opinion on it, I don't necessarily see it as good and evil, simply because, again, for personal reasons, I'm just not very religious. For me, I see it more as just a monetizing extreme marketing action personally. If we want to talk it from a standpoint of good or evil, there's differences, but I don't see any difference from what he did with this shoe versus the Holy Water one. Right. I think it's just two different marketing schemes on opposite sides of the spectrum.
And I can go with that.
Part of it. Whether you want to see it or good or evil, I think that comes from your perspective. Are you religious or not to begin with? And what is your definition of good and evil? Whether it's bad or not, we're talking good and evil, religious or not religious. It's not necessarily a good message. The shoe that he was putting out.
We'll just put it this way.
That standpoint.
If the rapture comes and you're wearing your Satan shoes, the odds of you getting beamed up are slim to none. But if you're rocking your Jesus kicks, homie, And that doesn't just include the Air Maxes. If you get those sandals, the Jesus sandals that I see the kids rocking nowadays, you will also get a one-way pass ride on.
Right. Well, it is silly to think. I mean, but I agree with you too, Travis, that I think, and I would, one of these days I would like to do a show just about, religious talk and stuff like that, because that's definitely my wheelhouse, because that is one area where we are all three on different spectrums.
Wavelengths,
we're definitely on different wavelengths. And I mean, and I would like to bring, if anybody out there who watches knows anybody who is like, Buddhist, Hindu, anything like that, we would love to have them on. And I've got hundreds of pastor friends that would love to come on. Just, this would be a topic. But like I said, this is just one of those, it's a marketing tool that it's just because, I mean, who do you think the target audience is with this? Who would you guys say the target audience is with this shoe?
The guy that preached about Melania Trump being the hottest woman on the planet.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, but it's obviously going to be, and I haven't even checked eBay yet. I bet you that is just flying. I bet you they've got that marked up so much on eBay right now. It's not even funny.
No, it was definitely audience.
I'll add 2 more cents on before we roll on to the next topic. But I just thought of this. One of these things that's kind of funny is when I look at stuff like this, when I see kind of the waves that it makes, I think back, I have a very good friend who was telling me his parents, when he was growing up, if he would get Pokemon cards, was forced to throw them away. His parents would take them and they would throw them away, because Pokemon in Japanese, it stands for pocket monsters.
Pocket monster.
And so they were on the whole train of it's the devil, it's witchcraft and stuff like that. And so I always, when I see how crazy like people get that, or even people that go crazy about not letting their kids watch like Harry Potter, because
I was going to
witchcraft and stuff like that, and it's always very amusing. And then when you see the real devil power coming out and in kicks, I'm hoping that one day, I'm at the Nike outlet and a pair just ends up on the shelves there, and I can rock number 478 or something of that.
Sean, I don't know if you saw it there, but we do have a Murray Phillips sighting now on Facebook Live. It says you need to have someone who is Muslim, as it is the fastest growing religion in the world. So
I'm sure. Yeah. Oh, I definitely have Muslim friends. I happily.
I do too. Yeah.
Them on. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But you gotta give that shout out to your dad too. Come on, Sean, be good there.
Oh, I'm looking off here. I see the Murdog. I see him.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you're good. We'll get him on the show one of these days and have him talk to the world about how he did in fact hit me with a belt when I was bad. No denying, but one of these days. No. So I kind of want to segue. I know we went on that tangent for a little bit, but I'm glad we did. It was definitely something that has been riding the waves since it, kind of started on Monday. So I wanted to kind of segue into, I know we're going to be talking a little bit about foreign policy. And Travis, you had made mention kind of specifically what you were going to kind of touch on. You two have been kind of cooperating on something.
Yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and open with it. There's been a lot of stuff recently going on with the whole change of administration. Specifically, I'll start with China. Our relations, especially our trade relations, have been pretty rough over the years. President Trump was fighting with them nonstop over the trade wars, they were calling it. And then recently, just like 2 weeks ago, I believe it was March 19th, the U.S. and China met for a trade meeting in Anchorage, Alaska. And I don't know if you guys seen the video or not, but there was some footage of inside, and it was not a good meeting at all. Both sides, it got into a heated discussion. I mean, it didn't end well. The only good thing I saw that really came out of it was China did say that, like, hey, like, we don't want to go back to the way things were. We do actually want to improve our relationship with you. But the meeting didn't go well. And not only with the trade, but you look at China's been gaining, they're building an empire essentially. I mean, they really are. There was a really cool interview with Joe Rogan recently with a ex-CIA agent named Mike Baker, and he really breaks down the whole situation with what China's doing right now. It's really solid interview. If you really kind of want to hear the broad spectrum of everything that's going on. But I just use this as an example because, like, if you look back in V, I'd like you to touch on the history of this. The quote, "Speak softly and carry a big stick."
Right.
And what the U.S.'s position is in the world. Like, who are we? We're undoubtedly the most powerful countries, if not the most powerful country in the world. And we've all of us here have grown up with the benefit of being the number one country in the world. I mean, the U.S. has the world reserve currency, the U.S. dollar. Oil is purchased with the dollar. We have amenities that nobody else has. We have all of these benefits because we are the number one country. And what I'm getting at with this is, you know, we look at where we are and foreign policy, not just on China, but we have Russia too, who we're competing with. We have issues with Iran. We have North Korea, who recently just launched 2 ballistic missiles to challenge us. And I'm curious what your all's thoughts are on what is our role? Like, are we the police of the world, or should we? Some people, like the Libertarian Party, for example, they wanted to make us our own Switzerland. Like, we stay to our borders, we focus on ourselves. But realistically, can we afford to do that in order to have these things that we've grown up our whole lives with? And really, just let's just talk about what our role is in the world.
Well, I'll go in here, and this is actually going a lot with what I'm talking. And it's really cool how it. And I'm also happy to say that we do have a lot of students who do listen to this. So thanks to all of our students at Clopton who listen to this. But we were talking about with World War II. We're getting into World War II right now in my history class, and I just said, you know, where should we stand? And I had one young lady, a freshman, very insightful young lady, and she's very, I think actually you guys might have went to school with her mother, or she was ahead of you guys. But anyway, this young lady said, you know, we need to keep our nose. I think that we just stick our nose in everybody else's business just for the heck of it, and we should keep our nose out of it. Well, we can date our foreign policy back to James Monroe. James Monroe would have been our 4th president. And he said in a speech to Congress, in his State of the Union address, he made, and this is, I'll just go with a straight quote here. He warned European powers not to attempt further colonization or otherwise interfere in the Western Hemisphere, and that the United States would view any such interference as potentially a hostile act. And so that started our foreign policy stance, and that was called the Monroe Doctrine. From that, now you mentioned a great quote there, Travis, "Speak softly," and so that was our operating policy for many years. We got involved in the Spanish-American War, and because Cuba was being oppressed by Spain, and we were saying, well, we're going to make Cuba safe for democracy, when all we wanted was our hand in the sugar trade. Fast forward then,
What was the ship that blew up and they said, "Remember the Maine" or something?
Remember the Maine and the hell of Spain was the quote. And so, and again, you know, it was all world, America, America's the greatest, and America this and America that. And so what ended up happening here, I'll just skip forward a little bit to World War I. Okay. So America was tired of war. Now think about this, and this was a unique time in history, 1917. America was tired of war, as it had seen 3 major conflicts in 50 years. Think about this: Civil War, the Spanish-American War, the Filipino Rebellion. Okay, so you get these 3 sides that develop, and we see this within, and you guys, we still see this today, and we can still categorize people in these categories. Number 1, isolationist. These are people, and like you said, you know, Travis, like the whole Switzerland thing, being within our own borders and everything. They believe, this was in World War I, believe that this was none of our business, and we've got problems ourselves here at home. Then you had the interventionists, and these were people who said war, things that are happening in the world does affect American interest, and we should get involved with whoever our allies are. Okay. And then you kind of had the middle ground people, which were called internationalists and still called internationalists today, and believe the U.S. should play an active role in world affairs, achieving a just peace and not enter a war. Okay. But we end up conveniently getting involved in World War One because, of a sinking of another ship, Lusitania. Then you fast forward World War II, Americans are deeply pushing against getting involved in the war. You got Charles Lindbergh, the guy, Spirit of St. Louis pilot, who says, we're not going to get involved in this. We shouldn't get involved in this. They had sent in investigations about World War One and said, oh, it's big business and the arms dealers and everybody like that who's getting involved with this. And Congress issues several neutrality acts to keep us from getting involved. And Americans were saying, just like they're saying today, hey, we've got a lot of problems. This is during the Depression. We've got a depression to worry about, and all changed on December 7th, 1941, when we're, fully involved in the war. Okay. And then after that, it moved on to the communists. Our concern became containment of communism with Truman. Okay. And then that led our sights to Vietnam and Korea and all, and every just fiascos. And so my thing that I believe on this, and you guys can interject on this too, if we don't get involved, and I made this point with the kids today, I said, okay, so what happens if we don't get involved? Think about this. And this was and some of you guys, I have yet to watch Man in the High Tower, what's the one, High Castle on Amazon? Is it Man in the High
Tom Hiddleston?
Yeah, what is that Man in the High Castle? Is that what that one was called? Yes, but basically it was. I think it was based on the fact of the thing of, okay, here's what happened if Japan didn't bomb us in World War II and we let things go. Okay, and so here's a great comment that your dad just made, Sean. He said, in a global world, isolation is not really possible. Economic interests are too intertwined. The United States is a major player because our spending on military alone is greater than other industrial powers, including China and Russia. And that is very true. And so if we would have stayed back, if Japan made the big mistake when they bombed us, because that got all the United States on the same page. Okay. And within my lifetime, I guess your guys' lifetime too, although you may not remember it well, 9/11, we all came together for, and if we just sit back and we let things happen. So it becomes this argument, do we let things happen or do we get involved? That meeting you talked about in Alaska, Travis, and I was reading some of the transcript from that. And the Chinese representative, we told them that they needed to look more at human rights and everything. And the Chinese diplomat said something along the lines of, you need to stop pushing your democracy on everybody else while you have black people being shot in your streets. And I was like, whoa.
Hell yeah.
It was a heated discussion.
Yeah. So, I mean, I looked at, so I actually went to the State Department's webpage. And so according to the U.S. State Department, here's our foreign policy goals. Number 1, advance democracy, human rights, and other global interests. Number 2, protect the U.S. and Americans. Number 3, promote international understanding of American values and policies. And number 4, support U.S. diplomats, government officials, and other personnel at home and abroad who make these goals a reality. And I mean, is it a whole holier than thou thing that we say our way's the best way? I mean, when we can't even control our own problems here at home?
I think I think we kind of screwed ourselves. I think we're at a point now where we don't really have a choice. Like we have to intervene. We have to hold our place. I mean, let's look, for example, your dad, Sean, made a great comment about how the economics and how it's all intertwined. I mean, think of it this way. What if they started purchasing oil with the yen? What if the US dollar was no longer the world reserve currency? That alone, you know how devastating that would be for us? We wouldn't be able to get away with all the debt we have because of it. I mean, that right there alone would just crush us. So I think of it as that. I mean, just the money side, the economic side. I mean, we don't have a choice at this point. Like, we're too deep in. Like, I feel like we put ourselves in this position that we either stay on top or it's I just don't see another way for us. As much as
Sure.
everyone loves the idea of being just, we stick to our borders and we let the world be what it is, but
Well,
I
and
just
and
don't
that
think that's a reality that we can live in, unfortunately.
and I think that's the hypocrisy of it all, though. Too. That was something else I looked up. So if we're really going to get involved in foreign policy, why are we? I mean, obviously, and go back to what Murray was talking about. You know, we're only think about where are we, and maybe this is just my own opinion. See what you guys think. Are we only involved in the places where there's a financial gain to be made? I mean, obviously, our love for the Middle East. We stand right behind Israel all the time, and we stand behind the Saudis and Kuwait. You know why? Because that's where the oil's at. I mean, you don't have to be the head checkout clerk at Walmart to figure out that's what's going on there. I mean, but I looked up and I actually did not know about this. Of all of the armed conflicts that are going on in the world right now, I mean, and of the 15 major armed conflicts that are going on right now, you know where 13 of them are at? Just take a stab. Where do you think huh?
Africa?
Yeah, Africa.
Mhm.
And how much of that have we heard about? I mean, when I was looking down this list, I heard of Sudan, what was going on in Sudan, the Darfur region, and Rwanda. Those were the only two that I knew about. And the other 11, I was like, where, who, what,
We had briefly talked about a couple of those. Like we had briefly mentioned, but that's all it is. It's a brief mention. When I look at a lot of this stuff, I look at what I see people talk about, and especially because there's such a big divide. There's a couple things that make me there's times when I think maybe it's not in our best interest to be everywhere at once, but then there's other times where I look at history and I think, what would have happened if we wouldn't have intervened and went to war with Germany in World War II? And when you look at instances like the Holocaust, and sometimes you listen to Holocaust survivors talking about how they felt when they saw American troops and Allied troops rescue them and save them. Well, then I look at like today's world, and one thing we always hear is I constantly hear it get nagged at, and people complain about our military spending budget, right? And I don't think people really truly understand what exactly falls under the military spending budget. Whether it be education incentives and healthcare incentives back home, but a lot of the stuff we do across the pond also falls underneath that military spending budget as well, for foreign aid and to assist in foreign policy, not just the war that we've had in Afghanistan and Iraq, but literally assisting those nations in trying to set up a government. That's money that is money spent over there. And people might argue, well, is it money well spent? It depends on who you're asking. We look at the conflicts that we have here in the United States, and I kind of look at us as this melting pot, right? And it's good that there's all kinds of different spices and flavors and all kinds of good stuff. But have we added too much fondue? Is it really just kind of pouring out at this point to where is there such thing as too much of a good thing, right? When you look at America, when you look at us, and you go back in time, a lot of people think, wow, free country, you think Statue of Liberty, you think Hollywood, you think of all these big things. But then when we're here in America, we see the actual problems that we face here, whether it be police brutality, whether it be, the conflict between citizens marching and protesting in the streets. Like, we have issues here. and those issues aren't being solved. We have homeless people in our streets. If you go to like cities like San Francisco and even Los Angeles, like, for every 2-3 people with a home, you've got someone without one.
Mhm.
So do we help the person here at home, or do we help the person over in the other nation who has a country who's supposed to have their back? But then it's tough,
Well-
because then you have governments in other nations that are killing their citizens by the thousands, hundreds of thousands in some cases. So it's just like, it's hard to draw a line in the sand and figure out, okay, we unfortunately can't help everyone. And so, I like where both sides came from, where, when we're talking about, human rights in China is an issue. And for them to clap back, well, you also have a human right issue. He's not necessarily wrong.
Right.
So we're in a situation where I'll go back to the quote of, what is it? Speak silent, carry a big stick.
Speak softly, carry a big stick, and you'll go far.
Speak softly, carry a big stick. What happens when there's someone that's even more quiet that has a bigger stick? We're kind of running into that issue with nations like China, with nations like Russia and China, kind of being buddy-buddy, realizing what's going on. You look at instances like in Japan and Great Britain have naval fleets out in the South China Seas together because of the ways that the Chinese Navy has been moving closer and closer and closer.
Right.
That's a
Yeah, isn't
conflict
that didn't they just start what was it, Japan, us? It was like basically a bunch of nations in the Pacific coming together to, like, if something happens, we'll stand with you against China or something like that.
More or
Wasn't that a
less.
thing that just
Well,
happened?
see, so what you have is, okay. So you have all these different groups that are, obviously we have the UN, which is together to, you have whatever 100 plus member nations in that. You have NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. You actually have CETO, which is the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization. And then, and then off of that, then you have all these little offshoot groups that, if push comes to shove, who's going to be on whose side?
Mhm.
And that's what's scary. I mean, because there's so many. I mean, World War II, you could say, okay, here's the enemy because he's wearing the helmet with a swastika on it, or whatever. And then you get into Korea, and then it's kind of the lines start to blur. Vietnam, and I wrote, one of my senior research papers was on Vietnam, and just reading some of the, you didn't know who the enemy was. And then we go into, so then we were all united against communism for a while. And then 1992 happens, and now the lines are all blurred again, because think about, all right, so we have us and China are on this nervous, like you said, Travis, this nervous edge. Okay, so you have that. You have, and then we're still bombing the crap out of Syria because of all these terrorist groups, who Syria has this backdoor relationship with Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go over, and North Korea is launching, last week North Korea launched a test missile over into the Sea of Japan, and China kind of sits back because China doesn't like Japan, but yet they're telling their communist brother, hey, chill out a little bit, let's not push it. I mean, when it comes to nuclear power, China kind of is the cooler head that prevails. And I mean, there's just this, and then everybody hates Israel, who we're allies with, and it's just there's such a delicate balance when it comes down to who's with who. And I mean, because it's no longer, because in World War II it was the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Well, now it's like, okay, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but he's the enemy with this, and so now it's just this.
It's like dating in a small town. Like, yeah, my second cousin, we're not related through blood, so we hook up from time to time, but it's not, like official, because I do see my third cousin who doesn't like my second cousin, but she dated her uncle's nephew for a while, so yeah, it's just a mess. It's just a mess, but everyone's getting laid, so we really don't care right now.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, think about that delicate balance that I mean, it is really a balancing act of trying to, and then how does the United States keep their head above water in all this? I mean, the people who are way above our pay grade obviously are paid to think a lot about this, but I mean, and then that's the other thing. You have different philosophies amongst, I mean, wouldn't you agree, Sean, that there, and Travis, that you guys being in the military, isn't there different strategies, beliefs that the military believes, okay, here's who we should be watching out for, and they're putting that in the president's here, while presidents, other advisors, his foreign advisors outside the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying, okay, well, we need to look at this guy. I mean, I really feel for the president because he's got all this bombarding at him at once from all different sides.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't even say it goes against OPSEC. It's like not a, the army at least literally gets, a new brief, a new report comes out yearly on like, hey, like we're not allowed, like, if, like little things like TikTok. If you are a United States soldier, you are technically not supposed to have TikTok because it's a Chinese owned app and has,
Really?
and they're worried about the securities and stuff. Yeah. So by the definition in the regulation that's passed out to soldiers, you're not supposed to have a TikTok. Now, is it like, are you going to get barred from the military if you got a TikTok? Clearly not. But, if you go viral and your chain of command finds out, they might chew your ass or something like that. But it's, yeah, I mean, the whole, there was the report, you could Google it. It's common knowledge. The United States government, the CIA, FBI, releases an annual report on the dangers of, and they're like up front, the dangers of Russia, the dangers of China, the dangers of, XYZ. They don't care. I mean, it is pretty upfront and blunt on like, hey, this is who we have issues with. And that's why it's, so funny. Like when it comes to foreign policy, and it's actually really interesting. I'm going to have to go back and actually watch that entire press conference between China and America, because I only caught a little bit of snippets of it when I had heard about it. But man, it's interesting because really recently, I don't know if it was within the last time we spoke, Putin is out here talking about how he wants to have a live
debate,
live stream debate with our president. That didn't happen whenever Trump was president, but now it's happening when Biden's president. And it just, what people don't seem to understand, oftentimes when I see people talk about XYZ, is there is so much more at stake than truly meets the eye. And it's not just, we live in an unfortunate, it's just an unfortunate truth where, yes, and it's not just in America, everywhere in the world, the human life is not as important as the life of the dollar or the currency that revolves around that nation. It is just a true fact.
Yep.
But when you look at it, it's interesting because I would, like, in America, we have a lot of people complain about our lack of free universal health care for people, right? That the big thing is, why don't we have health care here in America? Why are we spending money over elsewhere? And why don't we have health care here in America? It's like, cool. Let's say we take that away. Let's say we take all that spending that we use over there, and now we have universal health care in the United States. But now all of a sudden we have lost 4 nations in which we get oil from. 4 of those nations have now jumped ship with Russia, and Russia finally feels like they've got the manpower to actually go to war with us. But now we have universal health care.
Well, and that therein lies another problem, though. I mean, who do you want to be best friends with? I mean, so our relationship with Russia is definitely strained.
Absolutely.
And do you think it'll come down? And kids ask me this all the time, and I mean, I was asked this today. Do you think that we're going to have another world war? Do you think that there is a possibility? And this is what the generation behind us is worried about.
Yeah.
And I get this. I mean, every year that we talk, when I talk World War I, World War II, and all this other stuff, the kids always ask, "Is that a possibility?" And unfortunately, I say, "Yeah, it's a real possibility because we're letting these." Oh, I lost Sean now. Great, but now that's a real possibility for us to have to look at, and say, where are we going to be at, say, 10 years from now? Are we going to be in a place where the lines are drawn, where the lines are clearly drawn? And so that's the problem that I'm worried about, is where are we going to be at in 10 years? Are we going to be able to say, my enemy, my friend, his friend, their friend, where are we all going to be at in what's it going to look like? So that's the issues that I'm. It was at this point when we were doing our live feed that we had some technical difficulties, and it happens sometimes, and that is the beauty of having a live podcast on Facebook. For those of you who are listening on our podcast for this week, we apologize for the difficulties that we had, but we will be back next week. We had a great discussion this week. I want to thank Sean and Travis for a great discussion, and thank you for all of you who inputted in on tonight's discussion as well. We will be back next week with a special guest, and we hope to see you all then again soon. Until then, thank you very much, and have a great week, guys.